I've always been an avid learner. I love to learn and just implement things. School specifically wasn't the box for me to like shine in and thrive in.
Yeah.
And that orientation, I ended up sharing with people, yo, when I am 30, I'm retired. I was like, all right, I found out about this thing called the FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. Okay, I am currently 22. What do I got to do over the span of the next 8 years that I can get to X amount of dollars so that I'll be able to do the safe withdrawal rate of 4% every year, and I will never have to work a day in my life again. All I knew was like, I'm not going to work. I like showed up to day one of work and I was like, nah, this is not it. I can't be doing this.
I mean, that's a powerful mindset, especially going into this job, right? Like, I feel like a lot of people, when they land their first career, there's that element of excitement in something. So, like, for you to even walk into that saying, okay, how soon can I get the fuck out of here? Like, you know what I mean? I feel like that's a pretty, like, I don't know, powerful way to think about stuff, like an indication that, you have a wisdom to you or at least a divergent way of thinking of like, okay, I know what's good for me and I'm doing this for a specific reason. But how soon can I get this done? And so what was your journey like through the banking industry?
Yeah, that lasted about 2-ish years. I was at Fidelity Investments on the tech side, and I am so, again, vastly appreciative of it. If it wasn't for me being there, I probably wouldn't have found out about Bitcoin in an early nation, stage. And that has definitely helped me a bit financially. The learnings from that has then allowed me to also be able to buy a house at an earlier stage in my life, which I was like, oh, wow, I understand how this works. How can I buy a house with low money? What can I do for that? So it's kind of, I was able to buy a house when I was 24, I think, but I didn't really have that much money. It was just kind of like learning the systems and all that. And it was great for that purpose. I used to have to do a 40-minute drive each way every day. In that time period, a building block that grew for me was I fell so deeply in love with podcasts. Just listen to all these different podcasts, and I would like consume, get inspired, the drive back and forth. And then about a year into it or whatnot, I had a very terrible back injury take place, and that put me out, and I couldn't come into the office for a bit. But as that happened, it was that time bridge that merged where I was like, dude, work is lame. Why am I driving to work? So then I started milking it. I was like, yo, the doctor said I can't come. And I would just milk it for another few like weeks, and then be like, I can't come in. And then I'm like, freedom. Yeah. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't go in there, can't be doing it. And I would just keep pushing off things to the side. And around the same time, one of my good friends who was part of the company, who had worked at a lower paying job there, was like, I can't be at this company. I'm getting paid like literally a third of what you're getting paid. This is not going to make me survive. I'm going to leave. And his dad is an underwater photographer. He was like, I'm going to go with him to the Cayman Islands because he's got this cool gig there and they're doing all this stuff. So he leaves with him, goes to the Cayman Islands. They do some shoots there. They go elsewhere. They do some stuff. And he comes back and he's like, yeah, dude, my dad and I, we went did these things. He's like, I'm going to now start just going around Dallas and like taking photos and doing all this stuff. And I'm like, what am I doing? Why am I?
So that was the seed that planted.
Yeah, I was like, what am I doing? Like, well, I got to be out and about. Yeah. So I bought a camera and started doing some like real estate like shoots with him. Nice. And just like trying to figure out what I can do.
How did you land on, just to make this a bit bigger, like how did you land on photography or videography, or like, was it just seeing him doing this stuff, or was that already in your repertoire?
I had done yearbook when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And so I was one of the photographers for yearbook, and I would like have to capture things throughout the year, put it together. And I did black and white photography class in high school, developed my own film and all that. So I had like, inklings of my own passion of it put to bed. And then now that I've got, paychecks coming in a little bit, I'm like, oh, what am I going to do with this thing? Oh, let me go buy a camera so I can like do some cool things. I see a vision. He had, to earlier point that we have discussed, you don't know how hard things are going to be. He had gone to Cayman Island because his dad was already built something up for so long. And I saw him do that. And I'm like, Dad, I could be going to the Cayman Islands. What am I doing here?
Yeah.
So I was like, I just got to do this.
Yeah, you had that uninformed optimism.
Exactly. Massive uninformed optimism. And I just got into it, and it was weird because I got into it thinking and desiring for a freedom of life, of time. Because the same thing that I said on day one is, I'm going to retire to go get all my time back to be doing all this stuff. And then I equated that identity with also like, I can do this with like photography or all of this stuff. And then in doing so, I feel I created myself a whole new secondary job off of which was not like, am I really wanting this specific thing? Like, do I really want to go to all these houses and take photos and videos? And do I want to come home, sit in front of a computer, and then edit these things about these houses? Like not really talking to people. Like, I'll go talk to a realtor, and that's cool. But like, is this really it?
When in the process did you have that conversation with yourself?
I think this goes back to when you brought that topic up. I was thinking about the hero's journey, and I feel like I hit that valley pretty fast because I didn't get the feeling of human connection as much as I wanted, because the work was like taking photos of empty homes, coming back to a laptop, and then doing stuff. And I'm like, this is a lot of just like, again, digital aspect of a repeated thing. It's like, I'm getting paid a lot more at my work where I can be at my computer. And like, so it's kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this, but it's still kind of cool because I can still go meet somebody different every time that I do something. And I was like, there is something here. But where the dichotomy existed for me is my upbringing and then my learned lessons and my emotions and all of that stuff that come along with it, where it was like, okay, wow, I am making $67,000 coming out of college. This is how much I get to make. And then this is the work that I get to do. And now if I go do this videography job for real estate specifically, I think I was making like $250 to $400 for a shoot. And like doing the numbers on that, crunching it, was like, this is going to be like a pretty hard thing for me to get to that $67,000. And I was like, okay, like, I don't know. And I didn't necessarily enthusiastically keep showing up for that.
But you did go out and shoot a little bit, and you kind of got your feet wet with it, and
you
got a taste of it.
Correct.
Okay. I think that's important to talk about too. Like, is a lot of times that, we've mentioned uninformed optimism now for a while, and that's a common theme that I talk about, but because I've suffered from it, and it has led me into so many fucking of these gaps and everything, and I've been so enthusiastic about shit, but then once I started, I'm like, this fucking sucks. Like, I don't like this at all. And I think it's important to be able to pivot. And I think it's important to, especially with people like, high achievers and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, like I said I was going to do this. Like, I'm not a quitter. To be able to pivot. So I guess, how did that conversation go with yourself of like, okay, you mentioned the financials of it, and you mentioned that it's like, okay, maybe the juice isn't worth the squeeze, but was there any sort of other thing? Was there any sort of driving factor that was like, wait a minute, I got into this, I bought all the equipment. Like, was there anything that was pushing you to stay the course with the real estate photography and stuff, even though you knew it wasn't gonna maybe be as lucrative as you wanted it to be?
At the time period, I was dating someone else, and we both were in Dallas, and we both wanted a lifestyle that puts us in a city that we love, Austin. So my then ex was working at a tech consulting firm, and I was like, yo, can you figure out if I can get a job there so I could just move to Austin? So I still had what reflecting back on was like, I'd love to stay in those high paying role, but be able to get time freedom. Can I do that? So I applied to Accenture, which brought me to Austin. And I got a pay bump, went up to like the 80s, I think, mid 80s or whatever. And I had to go 4 days. Monday through Thursday was hell. And it was like sign off those Monday through Thursdays because it was like I would fly to a different city and then work there, come back. And then it was like I had that, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to self. Friday was also still a work day, but it was kind of like remote in a sense, like you get to be wherever. And I was like, oh, wow, this is cool. I kind of have more time than just pure old work, getting paid a bit more. And it's giving me a chance to be in a new city. So it was kind of like I dole out that voice a little bit of what was an inclination that originally grew. But fortunately for myself, I still had that desire of just like, this is not it. This is not it. This is not it. And you're right. Pivoting is great. Lean into the pivots because no one knows what it feels like yourself. I have been called tinkerer, master tinkerer, in ways where it was like someone wanted to use that word in a maybe a very loving manner, or also in a very like, dude, you're just a person who just never can stick to this thing. And looking back on it, to where I've gotten, I'm like, dude, this is the reason I'm at my superpower, because I tinkered so much. It's like, I think that quote is jack of all trades, but master of none, but it doesn't finish. There's like a second part to it, and I forget what it is, but it's the jack of all trades that is worth it. And in the world that we live in now, you better be a jack of all trades. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it can pay to be either, depending on what you want to do, obviously.
Yep.
I very much resonate with the jack of all trades. I was much like you, like could not focus on one thing. I was always like, this is fun, this is cool, this is fun, I want to do this, that. And so, and yeah, the reason why I asked that question was because I was raised, and I feel like a lot of people are raised where it's like, you don't quit. You can fail, you can do whatever, but you just can't quit. And I feel like that keeps a lot of people in that mindset going into adulthood of they have to be loyal to the company that they don't want to be at. They have to be loyal to, whatever it is, because they have this don't quit mentality inside of them. That's like, I have to do this because I gave my word I was going to do it. And I think we're seeing a shift in the workforce in that, especially as like Gen Z comes in and, whatever. But I think that still holds true for people with hobbies, with identities, with, relationships, with whatever. And so, I think just to try to speak to the people that might have that of like, oh, I can't quit, I can't pivot, I can't do whatever.
Yeah,
it can be useful.
100%. I think what you're speaking to is humans operate on a few different biases. I think the biggest bias people that operate on is confirmation bias. And then another flip side of a bias are fallacies. And the fallacy to which you're speaking about is the sunken cost fallacy. There's something that you've done and you're like, I've already done this thing, so I have to see it through. It's like, well, that's already a sunken cost. You might not have to see it through because it's not going towards the direction that it needs to. That investment is already kaput. Don't double down on this investment.
Yeah, cut your losses.
Exactly. And where it is interesting is that there is a flip side, going back to like a hero's journey topic, is you are going to hit a valley. Yeah. the uninformed optimism wavers because you get hit by new information as you get deeper into the thing that you are working on. And that's happened repeatedly for myself in the past too, where it's like, am I choosing to leave this because it has gotten difficult? Or am I choosing to leave this because it is not the thing that actually resonates with what I am? Both are a construct or substruct of doing more work because you don't get enough data until you put in the work. And I think that has to be in reflection within each of us to realize, am I backing away from a challenge or am I backing away from the thing that is just not truly who I am? And because I have backed away from challenges where I was like, this is challenging and I know if I keep doing this, it's probably better. But confirmation bias tells me this is not for me because guess what? I am this XYZ. We can tell ourselves any type of story. And I say that because I think it's smart to spend an additional bit of time reflecting on what it is. I could, for example, went down this journey and I got into the world of media. Like, I picked up that camera and I started doing real estate. Didn't like it. Then I moved to Austin, still had the camera, loved connecting with people, met Francesca Martinez at On It back in 2019. And she was like, hey, I'm putting out this content. I want to do something with it. And me coming from the world of like tech and having all of these systems in place, I was like, yo, social media is growing. I think we should build like this course. When the course structure that we can do is we'll film this over a weekend and then break it into all these modules and like set it up in this platform. I'll take care of building it. We'll take care of filming it, X, Y, and Z. We did that. So exciting because it's like 2019. There was no courses necessarily in this, like, it was like, but in the early world of like courses as we know within this like online space. And I was like, oh my God, we just cooked up $36,000 like inside of like 6 months by just doing all this thing. I was like, this is like a repeatable process. It wasn't a repeatable process. It was like, okay, you've got to learn. Like you did well, but there's like specific learnings that you got to take and repeat again. And so I went to go do it again. And then I was like, oh man, I'm not really like finding people to be as great to work with as Francesca was. What is it? How do I do this? Oh, it's because I don't have dialed in systems on how to make course creation my product. But then instead of trying to necessarily identify that, I was like, course creation is not for me. I walked away. I was like, I started still doing video shoots. I was doing one-off shoots, etc. Because I was like, to go achieve that goal, we had to go through a lot of hoops. I chose not to do it. Then started just like doing event shooting. And after doing event shooting, I got to the point of like, you know what? I enjoy videography and I enjoy camera and I enjoy connection, but I hate having to go film and then go home and then upload, sit there, watch all this content go up, and then sit there and have to solo edit. And I'm like getting data points for myself where I'm like, all right, I now know what I like more and more, which is I like being with people. And I still like shooting, but boy, do I hate uploading stuff. Like, I despise it.
I think that's the content creator's
dilemma, crutch right there, man.
Exactly.
So I want to talk about, you've sort of a common theme that you're talking about here is self-awareness, right? And it's like, again, I think when we start something new, it's really easy to sort of get into that grind mindset of like, okay, I have a goal, I want to achieve it, and I'm just going to grind it out no matter how hard it works, or no matter how hard it, I have to push, whatever. So how do you develop that, like, self-awareness to check in with yourself and say, okay, am I doing what's right for me? How do you keep it front of mind to pause and say, okay, wait a minute, am I still on the right path for myself?
pain is a good sign.
Tell me more.
I think that when feeling pain, it's an opportunity to slow down, to go, what is causing pain? And it goes with like physical ailments, also goes with mental ailments. When ending up in a place where it's a sense of like feeling this sort of uneasiness, I think has been probably the moments of time where I was able to slow down and go, this is not something that I want. It's happening, but I don't want it. And pain to me now tells me it's a signal here. Something here tells me is not the thing that should be happening, but is repeatedly happening. When I kept going to work and being like, I begrudgingly am showing up here, something's off. I know I want to retire by 30. I keep doing this. I've picked up a camera for a reason. There's something here. So I think identifying emotions early on and recognizing what the emotion wheel is a great like overall facet. Like, as an exercise that I have done in the past on my 30th is just map out a whole emotion wheel of like, what emotions do I feel and where am I feeling them from? And kind of just do that exercise where it's like, I feel laughter in these areas of my life. I feel anger in these areas of my life. I feel joy in this area, feel sadness here. And I think doing that helped me vastly because I was able to go through a pinwheel and just be like, okay, like these are the things that are just like less of. I need to do less of this. How can I control myself to doing less of that? So if I had to part any advice from my experiences, I would say like doing that emotion wheel